Imagine sitting across from someone you thought valued you, and suddenly you realize you're dining alone. Your heart drops, until a stranger walks up, looks you in the eyes, and tells you the 7 words that change everything. He doesn't deserve you. You deserve better. Self-worth is one of the most misunderstood qualities in human life. People often confuse it with attention, approval, validation, or company. They assume that as long as someone is sitting across the table from them, showing interest, talking sweetly, or simply staying present, it somehow confirms their value. But true self-worth has nothing to do with who stays, who leaves, or who chooses you. It is something much deeper, something that must come from within, long before anyone else enters or exits your life. When she sat alone at that table, waiting, checking her phone, pretending she wasn't bothered, it was not merely the absence of a date that hurt her. It was the feeling of being overlooked, forgotten, not important enough to show up for. That feeling is familiar to many of us because we've all been in a situation where someone else's actions made us question our own value. But here is the truth. Being alone does not diminish your worth, and being accompanied does not guarantee it. Self-worth is not something another person gives you like a gift. It is something you choose to believe about yourself even when no one is around to remind you. Imagine for a moment that every person in your life suddenly fell silent. No messages, no attention, no reassurance. What remains in that silence is who you truly are. It's your voice, your spirit, your inner strength. That is where self-worth lives, not in the presence or absence of someone else. We live in a world where being alone is often mistaken for being unwanted. Society teaches us that value is proven by how many friends we have, how many people admire us, how many stay by our side. So when someone walks away or fails to show up, we start to think something must be wrong with us. But the truth is, people leave for their own reasons, not because of your lack of worth. People disappoint you because of their choices, not your shortcomings. People fail to see your value sometimes because they are too blind to recognize their own. Her date didn't show up. That was not a reflection of her flaws. That was a reflection of his character. But in that moment, sitting alone, she couldn't see that. She saw herself through the lens of someone else's behavior. Too many people do the same, measuring themselves by the actions of those who don't even deserve a place in their story. Self-worth is not measured by who chooses to sit at your table. It is measured by your ability to sit confidently, even when the chair across from you is empty. One of the most powerful lessons in life is learning to separate your identity from someone else's decisions. You may be beautiful, intelligent, kind, loyal, full of potential. But if someone else fails to acknowledge that, it doesn't make those qualities disappear. Their failure to appreciate you does not redefine your value. Your value remains constant, regardless of whether someone else recognizes it. Think of a diamond. Its worth is not determined by who picks it up or who walks past it. Its worth is intrinsic, unchanging. Independent, you are that diamond. Sometimes we forget this because we crave connection. We want to be seen, chosen, valued. It's human nature. But self-worth means learning to see yourself even when others don't. It means choosing yourself even before anyone else does. Because if you don't know your own worth, you will always depend on someone else to define it. And that will leave you vulnerable to disappointment. When the millionaire stranger whispered, "He doesn't deserve you," it wasn't the words themselves that mattered most. It was the reminder hidden behind them. Your worth is not something he had the power to diminish. Your value existed before he came, and it remains even though he didn't. The presence of someone who values you feels wonderful, but their absence should never break you. Self-worth is the steady foundation beneath your feet, not the chair across the table. It's the belief that you are deserving of respect, attention, and love, not because someone else says so, but because it is true. And the moment you truly understand that, you stop begging for presence. You stop fearing abandonment. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces where you were never meant to sit. You realize that someone leaving is not the ending of your worth. It is simply the beginning of your clarity. Self-worth is knowing that even when you stand alone, you still stand tall. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences a human being can go through. It cuts deeper than disappointment because it feels personal. It feels like a verdict on your worth, your attractiveness, your importance, your place in someone's life. When she sat at that table, waiting for someone who chose not to show up, she wasn't just experiencing an inconvenience. She was experiencing a moment that many people fear. The moment you realize someone you valued did not value you in return. But here is the powerful truth: rejection, although painful, is often the very moment that redirects your life towards something better. It is a turning point, a redirection, a hidden form of protection. When her date abandoned her, she felt humiliated. She wondered if she had said something wrong, if she wasn't interesting or attractive enough, if she somehow failed before the evening even began. This is the trap many people fall into after rejection. They blame themselves. They analyze every detail, searching for flaws that may not even exist. But sometimes rejection has nothing to do with you and everything to do with someone else's inability to appreciate what they were given. Sometimes people reject you because they are not prepared to meet someone like you. They reject you because they are emotionally unavailable, insecure, distracted, selfish, or simply incapable of offering the kind of connection you deserve. In those moments, rejection becomes a blessing in disguise. It is better to be rejected early than to be emotionally hurt later. Better to sit alone at a table for one night than to spend months or years with someone who never valued you from the beginning. When you experience rejection, you face a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. You can internalize it as a failure, or you can see it as a filter that removes the wrong people from your life. Rejection is a kind of sorting mechanism. It removes the people who cannot walk with you into the next chapter of your life. It frees you from investing time, energy, and emotion into individuals who would eventually disappoint you far more deeply. It forces you to confront your true worth and reevaluate what and who you want to allow into your life again. When the millionaire stranger whispered, "He doesn't deserve you," those words were not just comfort. They were a reminder of a greater truth. The rejection she experienced was not a dead end. It was a turning point. Think of how many people stay in relationships or friendships that drain them simply because they fear rejection or loneliness. They settle for less because they fear being unwanted. But rejection can actually save you from wasting your life on someone who was never meant to stay. It pushes you out of situations that are too small for your growth. It forces you to stop chasing and start rising. Sometimes it takes someone walking away for you to realize that you were walking in the wrong direction. Rejection is powerful because it stops you long enough to ask questions you never would have asked otherwise. Is this what I really want? Did I expect too little? Am I accepting the bare minimum? Why was I waiting for someone who couldn't even respect my time? Why did I put my heart in hands that were not capable of holding it? Those questions lead to revelations, and those revelations lead to transformation. This is how rejection becomes a turning point. For her, that night could have ended in sadness and self-doubt. She could have chosen to see herself as unworthy or unlovable. But that whisper, those simple 7 words, shifted her perspective. They reminded her that the evening wasn't about being abandoned. It was about being redirected. It wasn't about losing someone. It was about reclaiming herself. Rejection builds strength. It builds clarity. It builds standards. It teaches you what you will no longer tolerate and what you genuinely deserve. It helps you stop begging for attention and start expecting respect. It encourages you to close doors that lead nowhere and opens new ones you may never have seen before. In many stories of success, transformation, and empowerment, you will find a moment of rejection that served as the catalyst. People often rise higher after someone has underestimated them. They grow stronger after someone has walked away. They discover their worth after someone has failed to see it. Rejection is not the universe saying, "You are not good enough." It is the universe saying, "You deserve more than this." The moment she was left alone on that date was painful, but it was also symbolic. It marked the end of settling and the beginning of self-recognition. It was her turning point, and it can be yours too. Sometimes the worst moment of someone leaving becomes the best moment of you returning to yourself. Life has a mysterious way of delivering messages we didn't know we needed, often from people we never expected, in moments when we feel the most defeated. Sometimes the most powerful reminders of our worth don't come from lifelong friends or family, but from strangers who cross our path at precisely the right time. These unexpected encounters arrive like gentle interruptions, breaking the cycle of self-doubt we've fallen into without even realizing it. When she sat alone at that restaurant, staring at the empty chair across from her, she wasn't thinking about miracles or meaningful encounters. Her thoughts were wrapped in embarrassment, disappointment, and the sinking feeling of being overlooked. She felt invisible, like someone had silently declared that her time, her presence, and her effort held no importance. But then, unexpectedly, someone noticed her. The man at the nearby table wasn't part of her story, not in any planned way. He wasn't the person she was waiting for, nor was he someone she had ever met. Yet, he became the one who delivered the message she needed most in that moment. "He doesn't deserve you," he whispered, a simple sentence that carried the weight of truth. Unexpected encounters work this way. They appear when your vision is blurred by disappointment, when you are too close to your own pain to recognize your value. A stranger sees what you cannot. They have no emotional history with you, no bias, no motive, just clarity. And sometimes that clarity is exactly what you need to hear. In life, it is often the people we barely know who help us see ourselves more clearly. A brief moment of kindness, a single sincere statement, or a simple act of noticing can break the illusion of unworthiness you've unknowingly accepted. When a stranger sees your worth, it can feel even more powerful than when someone familiar does, because it is free of expectation or obligation. The millionaire stranger did not compliment her appearance, nor did he offer false hope. His words weren't about romance or admiration, they were about respect. They were a reminder that her time mattered, her presence mattered, her dignity mattered. It was a message she forgot while waiting for someone who didn't show up. In this world, people will disappoint you. People you trust may let you down, and those you care about may not treat you the way you deserve. But life compensates for those moments by sending reminders in unexpected forms. A stranger's kindness, a compliment in passing, a conversation you never planned to have, a moment of truth delivered at the exact second your heart needed to hear it. Unexpected encounters reveal an important lesson. Your value is not up for debate. It exists whether others recognize it or not. Sometimes, the universe uses strangers to highlight what the wrong people blinded you to. The man who didn't show up for a date made her feel forgettable, yet the stranger who noticed her reminded her she was anything but. One person's neglect dimmed her confidence, but another person's presence lit it back up. These moments teach us that our worth cannot depend solely on the actions of one person. One person can overlook you, but another will appreciate you at first glance. One person may walk past you, but another will go out of their way to acknowledge you. One person may not see your beauty, your intelligence, your strength, but someone else will recognize it even in a fleeting moment. Unexpected encounters also awaken a sense of self-reflection. When someone sees your worth so clearly, you start to wonder why you ever doubted it in the first place. You begin to question why you tolerated disrespect, why you accepted excuses, why you waited for someone who didn't value your presence. It becomes a moment of clarity, an awakening that pulls you back to yourself. The stranger in this story symbolizes something far greater than a person. He symbolizes the universe stepping in. He symbolizes the truth we often forget, that we are seen even when one person ignores us, that we matter even when someone else acts like we don't, that we are worthy even when someone's behavior suggests otherwise. Sometimes, it takes an unexpected encounter for us to reconnect with the truth we've buried under insecurity or disappointment. You may walk into a day expecting nothing special, but life has a way of surprising you. A message can arrive in a whisper, a smile, a gesture, a moment that comes and goes but leaves a lasting impact. We often underestimate how deeply one moment can change us, but small interactions can rewrite our self-perception. They can push us toward healing, growth, and a renewed sense of self-worth. They shift our focus from who failed to show up to who unexpectedly stepped up. And sometimes the person who steps up is not meant to stay forever. They're not there to be part of your story long term. They're there to remind you of something you almost forgot, that you deserve respect, love, and attention that is given freely, not forced, not begged for, not depended on. Unexpected encounters are proof that life watches you even when people don't. They are proof that value can be reflected back to you at the exact moment you stop seeing it in yourself. They are reminders that you are worthy of far more than who hurt you. And sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected moment from one unexpected person to remind you of the truth you were always meant to know. When people hear the story of the millionaire who approached her, whispered those powerful words, and lifted her out of a painful moment, many immediately focus on him. They imagine glamour, wealth, charm, and the romantic fantasy of being rescued by someone extraordinary. But the truth is far deeper and far more important. The millionaire in this story is not meant to be worshipped, idolized, or seen as a hero who saved her from heartbreak. He is a symbol, not a savior. This story is not about money. It is not about status. It is not about a wealthy man sweeping in to rescue a woman from emotional pain. It is about something far greater. It is about recognizing your worth without relying on someone else to define it. The millionaire symbolizes clarity. He symbolizes the voice you ignore within yourself. He symbolizes the truth you forget when you're too busy seeking validation from the wrong people. His presence in the story carries power not because of his wealth, but because he represents the kind of confidence, self-respect, and inner conviction that many people lack when they're hurting. When he whispered, "He doesn't deserve you," his message wasn't rooted in romance or desire. It was rooted in truth, and truth doesn't care about bank accounts. Truth doesn't need luxury to be valid. Truth stands strong on its own. When she sat alone at that table, she thought the only person who mattered in that moment was the man she was waiting for, the one who didn't show up. But the universe sent a reminder through a stranger. Your value does not come from who chooses you, and it does not disappear because someone walked away. The millionaire serves as a contrast. He shows the difference between someone who ignores your worth and someone who recognizes it instantly. Not because he wanted her, not because he needed something from her, but simply because he could see what she temporarily couldn't: her dignity. In life, we often search for saviors. We hope someone else will come along, tell us we matter, fix the hurt that someone else caused, and restore the self-esteem we lost. But no one, not even the kindest, richest, or most considerate person, can rebuild your self-worth for you. They can remind you of it, yes. They can reflect it back to you, yes. But they cannot replace the inner work you must do for yourself. That is why the millionaire in this story is a symbol. He symbolizes the moment when truth re-enters your life unexpectedly. He symbolizes the reality that worthiness is not granted. It is recognized. And sometimes it takes a stranger's eyes to make you see what your own heart has forgotten. He did not save her. He awakened her. He didn't make her valuable. She already was. He didn't rescue her dignity. It was never gone. He didn't fix her confidence. He simply nudged it back into place. Many people believe that self-worth must be restored by someone better, than the one who hurt us. They think another person must replace the one who left. They think healing comes from new attention, new affection, or new validation. But true healing comes from within. A reminder can come from outside, yes, but the rebuilding must come from your own heart. That is why this story is powerful, because the millionaire's words were a mirror, not a rescue mission. He reflected a value back to her in a moment when she struggled to see it. That's what symbols do. They remind us of truths we already know. And when we understand this, we stop idealizing people who show us kindness. We stop expecting others to fix what someone else broke. We stop believing that someone with wealth, status, or confidence must be the solution to our emptiness. We learn to take the message without depending on the messenger. The millionaire could have been anyone. He just happened to be the one who noticed her pain. But the symbolism lies not in his money. It lies in the message. You deserve better. You always did. Someone else's failure to see your worth does not erase it. If we focus too much on him, we miss the lesson. This is not a fairy tale about a rich man rescuing a lonely woman. This is a story about self-awareness sparked by an unexpected moment. He is a symbol of perspective. He is a symbol of truth. He is a symbol of what it looks like when someone finally says what you should have been telling yourself all along. The real transformation didn't happen because a millionaire spoke. It happened because she finally heard. She didn't walk away from that table because of the man who whispered to her. She walked away because she remembered her worth. That is the power of this story, not that someone saved her, but that someone reminded her she didn't need saving at all. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning to walk away, not because you're weak, not because you're giving up, but because you finally realize your worth is too valuable to be wasted on people who cannot see it. Walking away is not an act of defeat. It is an act of strength, self-respect, and emotional maturity. It is a declaration that you will no longer shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold your heart. When she sat at that table waiting for someone who never showed up, she was unknowingly sitting in a place where she wasn't appreciated. Not physically. The restaurant wasn't the problem. The problem was the emotional space she had allowed someone to occupy. She offered her time, her presence, her energy, her hope. In return, she received silence, and silence is one of the loudest forms of disrespect. Many people find themselves in similar situations, whether in relationships, friendships, workplaces, or family dynamics. They stay where they are treated as an option. They tolerate being ignored, overlooked, or taken for granted. They convince themselves that things will get better, that the person will change, that one day they will finally receive the appreciation they deserve. But here is the truth many avoid. When someone shows you that they do not value you, believe them. Walking away is not about punishing another person. It is about protecting your heart. It means recognizing that your time is precious and your presence is a privilege. Not everyone deserves access to your kindness, your loyalty, your love, or your effort. The moment she sat there, feeling embarrassed and disappointed, she didn't realize she was at a crossroads. She could have waited longer, made excuses for him, convinced herself that maybe he was busy or forgot or had a reason. But deep down she felt it, the sting of not being valued. And the whisper from the millionaire stranger didn't give her worth. It simply highlighted what she already knew but tried to ignore. She needed to walk away. This lesson applies far beyond a missed date. It applies to every part of life where you invest more than you receive. Walking away is self-respect in action. You respect yourself when you refuse to stay where you are disrespected. You honor yourself when you stop giving chances to people who waste them. You grow when you stop watering relationships that don't grow with you. Appreciation is not a luxury. It is the foundation of healthy connection. When people appreciate you, you feel safe. You feel seen. You feel understood. But when you constantly question your worth in someone's presence, that is your sign. That is your warning. That is your wake-up call. Walking away opens doors you didn't know existed. Sometimes we cling to people or situations because we fear the unknown. We fear loneliness, uncertainty, or starting over. But walking away doesn't leave your life empty. It makes space for something better, something you couldn't receive while your hands were full of what was hurting you. She walked away from the table not because a stranger told her to, but because his words echoed a truth she needed to face. Staying where she wasn't valued was costing her more than loneliness. It was costing her self-worth. When you walk away, you don't break your life, you rebuild it. You liberate yourself from disappointment. You reclaim your power. You take back control of your story. Walking away isn't dramatic. It's necessary. People often stay in unhealthy places because they don't want to appear dramatic or overly emotional. They downplay mistreatment to avoid conflict. But walking away doesn't require anger, confrontation, or loud announcements. Sometimes the strongest walkaways are silent. You don't need to explain why you deserve better. You don't need permission to leave. You don't need someone else to understand your decision. The moment you realize your value isn't respected, your departure becomes your statement. Walking away builds emotional discipline. It takes courage to walk away, but it takes emotional discipline to stay away. The urge to return to familiar places, even harmful ones, is strong, especially when you feel lonely, nostalgic, or hopeful that things might change. But discipline teaches you that temporary loneliness is better than long-term disrespect. Staying in the wrong place damages confidence, drains energy, and creates emotional scars. Walking away heals. Walking away creates boundaries. Walking away teaches others, and more importantly, teaches you how you deserve to be treated. Walking away is an act of self-love. The greatest love story you will ever experience is the one you have with yourself. And the first chapter of self-love begins when you walk away from places where love is absent. When she finally gathered her things, stood up from the table, and walked out of that restaurant, she wasn't just leaving behind a man who didn't show up. She was leaving behind a version of herself that tolerated too little, expected too little, and settled for too little. Walking away isn't weakness. Walking away is wisdom. Walking away is freedom. And the moment you learn to walk away from people who don't appreciate you, you become unstoppable. One of the greatest battles a person fights in life is not against other people. It is against the quiet voice inside that asks, "Am I enough?" This question appears when we feel ignored, rejected, disrespected, or undervalued. It creeps in when someone fails to show up for us, when a message goes unanswered, when our effort is met with silence, or when someone treats us as if we are replaceable. But the truth is this: if you do not know your own worth, the world will try to define it for you, and it will always define it far below the truth. People who do not respect you will make you feel small. People who do not value themselves cannot value others fully. People who are confused about their own direction will disrespect your path. If you leave the responsibility of your worth in the hands of others, you risk letting their limitations become your identity. When she walked into the restaurant that evening, she already had worth. She had value, dignity, confidence, even if she didn't fully recognize it. But as she sat alone and minutes turned to hours, she allowed someone's absence to rewrite her self-perception. It wasn't the empty chair that hurt. It was the feeling that maybe she wasn't worth showing up for. That moment is familiar to far too many people. But here is the truth we forget. Someone's inability to see your value does not define your value. It defines their vision. Knowing your worth means understanding that your time is valuable, your emotions are meaningful, your presence is a privilege. When you walk into a room, you bring energy, kindness, intelligence, and qualities that no one else can replicate. But if you don't recognize these things within yourself, you will settle for people who don't recognize them either. That is why self-worth must be planted and nurtured within you, long before someone else's opinion tries to shape it. Knowing your worth creates a shield against disrespect. When you truly understand your value, disrespect does not confuse you. It reveals others. You stop making excuses for how people treat you. You stop tolerating half effort, half attention, and half love. You stop accepting crumbs when you deserve the whole feast. A person who knows their worth does not beg for attention, does not chase love, does not fear rejection, does not interpret someone's absence as a reflection of their identity self. Worth creates emotional boundaries. It teaches you what you will and will not accept. When you know who you are, you stop worrying about who leaves. Self-worth must come from within, not from compliments. People often confuse worth with approval. They believe that the more attention they receive, the more valuable they are. But attention is fragile. It shifts, fades, disappears. It depends on mood, circumstance, and convenience. If you depend on attention to feel worthy, you become emotionally unstable, rising and falling with the inconsistency of others. Worth, however, is constant when it comes from within. With internal self-worth, a compliment feels nice, but it doesn't define you. A rejection stings, but it doesn't break you. A loss hurts, but it doesn't destroy you. This is the power of knowing your worth before anyone else tries to define it. People will always have opinions. Don't let them become your identity. Every person you meet will see you through a different lens. Some will see your beauty, some will see your intelligence, some will see your heart, some will overlook everything. None of these perspectives can define you unless you allow them to. When her date didn't show up, she was one opinion away from believing she wasn't worthy. But then a stranger walked up and spoke a truth she had forgotten. His words mattered not because he was wealthy, but because they pointed her back to herself. He didn't define her worth. He reminded her to reclaim it. Knowing your worth changes the way you walk through life. When you know your worth, you walk differently, you choose differently, you love differently, you refuse differently, you rise differently, you stop accepting less than you deserve. You stop waiting for people who make you wait endlessly. You stop explaining your value to those committed to misunderstanding it. Knowing your worth doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you aligned with your spirit, aligned with your boundaries, aligned with your future. Your worth is not a negotiation. Many people treat their worth as something to negotiate. I'll tolerate this because I don't want to lose them. I'll accept this behavior because I don't want conflict. I'll lower my standards so I don't end up alone. But worth is not a price tag you adjust to keep someone in your life. Worth is a truth you protect, even if it means losing people who cannot meet it. You are not expensive. They are simply unprepared. You are not too much. They are simply not enough for your level of depth and care. You are not hard to love. They are simply incapable of loving properly. Know your worth before anyone else shows up. If you know your worth before someone enters your life, you will never allow them to diminish it. You will not be shaken when someone leaves. You will not be destroyed when someone disappoints you. You will not break when someone doesn't show up. You will simply understand that their choices reflect them, not you. Knowing your worth is not a luxury. It is survival. It is emotional armor. It is the foundation of every healthy relationship you will ever have, especially the one with yourself. And once you know your worth, you will never again let anyone define it for you. In the end, this story isn't just about a woman left sitting alone at a table. It isn't about a millionaire who whispered truth into her ear. It's about every one of us who has ever questioned our worth because someone else failed to see it. It's about the moments that break us, only to build us stronger. It's about the power of walking away, the courage to choose ourselves, and the wisdom to never let anyone else define who we are. Because the truth is simple, you were valuable before they came, you will be valuable long after they leave. Life will send you reminders, some gentle, some painful, some unexpected, and every reminder has one purpose, to bring you back to yourself. So, the next time someone doesn't show up for you, remember this. You don't need their presence to feel important. You don't need their approval to feel special. You don't need their love to feel whole. Stand up, hold your head high, walk away from any table where you are not appreciated, and walk toward the life that sees your worth, clearly, loudly, and without hesitation. Because in the end, the real message is not he doesn't deserve you. The real message is, you deserve better, and you always have.